minute. We have the most fashionable audience in TV. I see you all. Look at this beautiful audience. Perfect audience for this week of up-and-coming fashion designers. I also see some of my sorors in the house. Look at you. So that's what I'm saying. Fashion is in the DNA of this show. And I could say that about our next guest. For over 4 decades, have a seat. The legendary designer Marc Bouwer has made fashion history on runways and red carpets. Marc is known for his memorable, dramatic, glamorous gowns. And you know, Aretha Franklin used to say, I love gowns, that have created so many timeless fashion moments. From designing Whitney Houston's unforgettable wedding dress in 1992 to Shania Twain's sexy leopard print costume for That Don't Impress Me Much music video. And back in 2016, I had the honor of walking the runway in one of Marc's dresses for the American Heart Association Go Red for Women fashion show. And Marc just dressed our friend GMA's Robin Roberts for last Sunday's Emmys. But you cannot introduce Marc without talking about his incredible white satin dress worn by Angelina Jolie at the Academy Awards in 2004. That gown was so iconic. 20 years later, it has its own Wikipedia page. And it just had another moment in the spotlight when Sydney Sweeney, Hollywood's It Girl, wore it at Vanity Fair's Oscars party earlier this year. Marc further shook up the fashion world in 2008 when he became the first designer to showcase his new collections online, a trend many others have followed. Tam Fam, please welcome one of fashion's greatest creative visionaries, Marc Bouwer. To the show.
Thank you, Tamron.
Tell us the story of what you're wearing.
Well, I thought I would dress up for you. It's all about fashion today, right? No?
This is beautiful.
Thank you. Part of our new men's collection.
Part of your new men's collection. I have to tell you, your start with Halston. I mean, it's almost you have this legendary storied career. When you look at the people who've come into your journey, Halston, what was that like at the time?
You know, it's so scary. You know, there was no cell phones in those days. There was the Yellow Pages. You know, I looked up Halston, one of the few American designers that I knew. I went up to Olympic Towers where he had his office. I asked the secretary there if I could leave my portfolio. And she kind of looked at me like, I guess she felt sorry for me. I said, okay, leave it here. Come back at the end of the day. So I came back kind of thinking, oh, this is going to grab my portfolio, dead end. She said, Halston wants to see you. So she pulled me back into his office there behind that beautiful desk and the cathedral behind him. You know, the black Ray-Bans on. He was paging through my portfolio. And he looked at me and he said, kid, I think you got something.
Wow.
And he gave me a job. So that was it.
And he was right. That kid had something. I was just looking at that photo of you and Whitney. You dressed so many of her beautiful looks. But the wedding dress at the time, what was that moment like?
Oh, my God. Well, it was so surreal. On that day, they said, wait outside of Whitney's room until she's ready. And then they called me and said, Whitney's ready for you. And I walked into the room, and there she was, just in a pair of pantyhose up to here, and she had her arms crossed. She had that headpiece on, and she stood there like this, and she said, I'm ready. And we did it.
And that's the thing, when I think about your designs, you have dressed the true divas of the world, both in their most intimate moments like Whitney's wedding, or Shania in her music video. With people now still try to copy that video look that you created.
Well, I did in total 9 videos with Shania.
9 videos with Shania.
Man, I Feel Like a Woman.
Wow.
With the top hat, the white shirt, short skirts, and then the famous leopard one. So, you know when it's Halloween and girls are dressing up in leopard, you made some sort of a mark on fashion history, so yeah.
I love that. Talk about fashion history. You know, so many of the young Hollywood stars have started to reappreciate, I guess if that's the word, clothes that were just impeccable, like yours. Angelina Jolie wears this beautiful gown. Andre Leon Talley declared it one of the most beautiful dresses ever to be worn at the Oscars. And now, one of the #1 women in Hollywood, Sydney Sweeney, says, I want to wear that. First of all, where was the dress being kept?
Oh, it was being kept safely in my design studio under, plastic, kind of locked away.
So it was archived. After Angelina wore it, it was archived.
Yes, yeah, no one had touched it since then.
Since then?
Yeah.
And so you got a call saying that...
Well, Molly Dixon, her stylist, who I've worked with other famous people, said, can we, vintage dressing is so huge, can Sydney wear that dress? Can we try it on her? So we had fitting with her. It looked absolutely beautiful on her. It was a little bit long for her because she's not as tall as Angelina. So we put her in the highest platforms possible. And 20 years later, on the night of the Oscars, she wore it again to the date.
Wow. I love that, and part of this series is talking about like how to reimagine the fashion world. I grew up in a world, people didn't get a chance to come to New York Fashion Week. You might, back in the day, see it in a magazine. Now you can see it sometimes online. But you were the first to say, I want to bring as many people as possible to the show. And you took your line online.
Yeah, well, these fashion shows, they're really fun for the audience, but they're not so much fun for the designers to put on. It's like a roller coaster ride that you just can't get off for like a month, literally. And they cost a lot of money. So we thought, how can we get more bang for our buck? And then social media was just starting to happen. And we're like, why don't we put the line on virtually, do a collection virtually, and then hand it out during Fashion Week, make it available. You can download the pictures, editors can watch it in their bathtub or whenever they have a minute.
And people around the world can have access to it.
Yes, and we were the first designers in America, I'm not sure of the world, but probably, we're actually in the CFDA book known as the forefathers of the virtual runway fashion show.
Wow.
And people refused to cover us in the beginning because they said it was too far out of the box. Now every designer in the world is doing stuff virtually.
Well, coming up, we're going to talk about the beautiful dress that Robin Roberts wore to the Emmys, and we'll take you behind the scenes as Marc created that look we can't stop talking about. Marc Bouwer after the break. Up-and-coming designer series. Still with us, legendary New York fashion designer Marc Bouwer. That was the behind the scenes of Marc recently dressing the icon Queen Latifah. Let's put that video back up. Tell us about Queen and this what you created for her.
I love Queen. I did some things for Queen early on in the days with Whitney because her and Whitney were friends. But then we reunited for this. It was a big political benefit at Radio City Music Hall, and she needed something to perform in. And so very quickly I created that for her. Lucky I'm able to sew and cut and make everything, by myself. So I was able to do it on time. And there she performed in that. And, fashion... The clothes that I do are, people say, well, they're only for skinny people. But I've dressed so many curvy, fabulous bodies.
You've always been on the forefront of that.
Oprah.
And
Oprah, so many things for Oprah.
You've dressed Oprah over the years. And going back to the look for Queen Latifah, that was a pant.
It was a pants, a top, and a wide sort of obi belt, and then that gorgeous sort of long see-through coat over it.
I love that. You said you still cut and do it all yourself.
I'm doing a lot of it myself now because I have more time, because I'm not selling to the store. I don't do mass production. That just really turns me off, and I did that for like 30 years. So now I am more exclusive. It's all personal clients, celebrity, Vegas. I did Shania's first big Vegas show, movies, music videos, and that's what I really enjoy. So after a while, you have to like tone it down and figure out exactly what it is that you really enjoy about fashion. And
I think about the fact that you grew up and you had the encouragement of your mom. You grew up in South Africa. Your mom saw you at a young age sewing and said, he's got it. You have it.
Yeah, well, you know, I begged for Barbies when I was a kid, and nobody wanted to buy me a Barbie. Finally, my mother did. She gave into it, and I dressed Barbie. That was my first entree into dressing women.
You started big. Barbie's
big.
Well,
I soon realized that Barbie's proportions were so not like the real woman, but it was a good start. And
well, having the encouragement of your late mom
yeah.
early on, what difference did that make in your trajectory, you think?
Well, my mom loved fashion. She loved clothes. She also knew how to sew. So I learned to sew with my mom, and we did things together. I took old socks, made Bobby's stretch dress, and bits and pieces of fabric, and old tablecloths and that. And my mom really encouraged me with that. So.
Well, we got to talk about this Emmys look. I was watching the Emmys the other night, primetime, and there was Robin Roberts in this beautiful gown, and I instantly went over to Robin's Instagram because I was like, who made this dress? And there you were creating this. Tell us about the look you created for Robin.
Well, I've known Robin for many years, and I've dressed her several times.
Look at that body.
Exactly. So look at that body. So all you need to do is drape that body beautifully, let those curves come through. She tried on a halter dress from a collection of mine, and she loved the shape of it. So we took that, and I talked her into doing those long ties at the back of the dress and the very low back, very slinky. And then that fabric is a beautiful ombre fabric that goes from the kind of a midnight blue that's kind of dusts into a silver at the bottom.
That's what I love, the ombre in the dress. It's just like you start with her beautiful face and then you just go all the way down, and it just keeps giving.
Know your client. Know what's best about her.
Is that your advice? Yeah. Because we have these young up-and-coming designers. Know your client. How do you get to know your client?
Well, you look at their body of work, you talk to them, and then you also have your own visual of what you think they should look like. And then, you know, it's a little bit of a compromise. It depends on how much they trust you. And you try to do your thing on them.
Well, it's funny enough, because when I wore Marc's design for the Go Red Heart, I remember being in the dressing room and I was like, ooh, people are gonna know I'm top heavy.
It's gorgeous, look at that, wow.
That remains one of the most unforgettable moments in my life, because I was like, I can't walk out with my, and they were like, own it, it's a Marc Bouwer. I'm like, okay, here I go. Oh my God. Tell us about that dress, because it was one of those things I was like, can I smuggle this in my purse? That dress was made of?
Well, it's tulle, and it has raffia that's embroidered, and then pieces that are left loose that kind of look feathery. I don't use real feathers because I'm vegan and I don't use any animal products. Then underneath we put a sequin. I think it was a red sequin that we put underneath the black tulle, and then it gave that really great shimmering effect.
Well, thank you. It was an honor to wear your clothing.
Thank you.
And thank you for continuing to inspire up-and-coming designers around the world and being innovative in this world that sometimes puts you in a box. I love you so much. Thank you, Marc.
Thank you, Tom.
And you can see more of Marc's amazing designs at Marc Bouwer.